under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, welcome. Mr. Scott, can you call the roll?
Ms. Albright?
Here.
Mrs. Bell?
Here.
Mrs. Godfrey?
Here.
Mr. Jarrett?
Here.
Mrs. Leone?
Here.
Mrs. Olson?
Here.
Mr. Scott here. Mr. Strobel?
Here.
And Mrs. Thompson?
Here.
Doing the committee of the whole.
All present.
Okay, and we are going to start with the special voting meeting. I do have an announcement that involves some legal stuff, so we would like to do an agenda edit to add under personnel consent items to A 111 to add the administrative appointment of Jason Withers, Act 93 Director of Facilities and Contracted Services for Danny Boone School District effective April 19, 2022, or when released from current employer with a prorated salary of $80,000, which will replace Brian Balla. Having said that, do I have a motion to add this to the agenda?
Make a motion.
Ms. Bell, second for Mr. Jarrett. Any discussion before we add this? Before we vote on adding this to the agenda? Can I get a vote?
Sure. Mrs. Albright?
Yes.
Mrs. Bell?
Yes.
Mrs. Godfrey?
Yes.
Mr. Jarrett?
Yes.
Mrs. Leone?
Yes.
Mr. Scott, yes. Mr. Strobel?
Yes.
Mrs. Thompson?
Yes.
And Mrs. Olson?
Yes.
None yes.
Thanks. So procedures for public participation. If you have a prepared statement to be read to the board, you should have a copy presented to the board president prior to the board being addressed. Comments on agenda items can be made by rising and approaching the microphone, stating your name and address, and signing in on the sheet provided. You'll be granted up to 3 minutes to address the board. Your 3-minute time limit will start when you begin to speak. When 3 minutes are over, you'll be asked to be seated. Any item that is not on the agenda, as well as agenda items acted upon, comments can be made at the designated section at the end of the agenda. So we are starting with the special voting meeting. So presentations for the public on agenda items for the special voting meeting. Seeing none. Moving on, got personnel consent items. Can we have a vote on, no, that's wrong. Can I get a motion on 2A, 1 through 3, leaving out 2A, 1, 3, 2, 1, 1, and 2, which is essentially
I have no shot at that.
okay. Everything except those two. You want to start with those two? We can do that. Let's start with those two. So let's do. Can I get a motion for a vote on 2A 1.1? I'm sorry. Let's start over.
We did that.
2. Oh, you got. So
Can we just do 2A 1.1?
yeah, we're gonna switch it around because I want to make your life miserable.
That was that vote was to include it on the agenda.
Yeah, that was to include it on the agenda.
Okay.
Yeah, so we're going to vote on 2.A.1.3.2.1, 1 and 2.
I'll make a motion.
Excellent. Can I get a second? So all that, we went a long walk to say, I'm going to have to abstain on this one because this is the vote to, include my husband and I as unsupervised volunteers for a school trip. So I can't vote on it. So that's why we're doing it separate. Anybody have any comments or questions?
Did you say unsupervised?
It is. It's unsupervised. I handed all of my paperwork.
Couldn't resist the
Any comments, questions, concerns before we vote? Mr. Scott.
Sure. Okay. Mrs. Albright.
Yes.
Yes? I didn't hear you. Mrs. Bell.
Yes.
Mrs. Godfrey.
Yes.
Mr. Jarrett.
Yes.
Mrs. Leone.
Did he give you a paper?
Yeah.
Scott, yes. Mr. Strobel.
Yes.
And Mrs. Thompson.
Thank you, everybody. And thank you for your indulgence while we get through this. So we're going to have can we get another motion for 2.A.1, the rest minus the 2 we just voted on. Can I get a motion for that?
Motion.
Mr. Jarrett, can I get a second? And that includes under 1.1.1 the administrative item that we just voted to include on the agenda for the Act 93 Director of Facilities and Contracted Services. So, any questions, comments, concerns from the board before we vote?
I do.
Yes.
So what are we doing? What is 2.A.1
2.A.1
minus
2.A.1. .3, .2, .1, 1 and 2.
Okay. Why I was lost there.
So easy. Okay. So if we have no comments, questions, concerns on the rest of that item, we can have a vote?
Yes. Mrs. Albright.
Yes.
Mrs. Bell.
Yes.
Mrs. Godfrey.
Yes.
Mr. Jarrett.
Yes.
Mrs. Leone.
Yes.
Mr. Scott, yes. Mr. Strobel.
Yes.
Mrs. Thompson.
Yes.
And Mrs. Olson.
Yes.
Okay, and yes.
Thank you. Can we get a motion to, public comment on what we just did, if we have any? There will be a public comment period at the end of the committee of the whole for other things.
Jimmy, that was 2A.1.3.2.1, that's 1 and 2. I thought you'd say the
I know. What a mess.
True, there we go.
If there's no public comment on that, we're good. Okay, well, can I get a motion to adjourn this part of the meeting? Motion. And can I get a second? Second. Okay. Thanks all. Okay, moving on to. Moving on to.
Roll your eyes at me.
Okay, committee of the whole. There we go. And we're going to call this meeting to order. We do need to do the roll call again. I apologize.
Sure. Mrs. Albright.
Here.
Mrs. Bell.
Here.
Mrs. Godfrey.
Here.
Mr. Jarrett.
Here.
Mrs. Leone.
Here.
Mrs. Olson.
Here.
Mr. Scott here. Mr. Strobel.
Here.
And Mrs. Thompson.
Here.
Madam President.
Okie dokie. Procedures for public participation haven't changed in the last 11 minutes. And so we don't currently have any agenda edits for the committee of the whole, but we do have a superintendent's report. Dr. Cooper.
Thank you, Madam President. Start off with, I had the opportunity to visit the Primary Center's spring performance by our youngest learners today, and it was a joy to see all the smiles from our youngest learners in the district as they participate in events, and also see the families and the parents there as well. And this was the first first event for these students in particular at the Primary Center because of the past 2 years being what they've been with having to navigate the pandemic. It was good to see the kids smiling and participating in in-person performance, so it was exciting. I really enjoyed it. Also, I want to share that our district's work with Unified Sports continues to be recognized at the local and state level, which is a true reflection of our students, staff, and community being an inclusive environment. Also, highlight our students, our high school most recent Unity Day have been featured in 2 separate articles in local newspapers. And also, finally, want to take this opportunity to wish all of our Blazer Learning community a safe and happy spring break season with family and friends. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Dr. Cooper. Any questions or concerns for Dr. Cooper this time from the board? Moving on to our student board representatives' reports. I don't know.
It should be on.
It should be on.
Is the blue light on?
Pull it a little closer here.
Maybe the volume's down.
Like,
The volume's
yeah,
down.
Yeah, I would.
When Brian was there, it was down.
Okay.
When Brian was
Oh,
up,
That's a little better.
That's better.
Earlier, Brian was up.
Okay, the Primary Center for Academics, the kindergartners are using Osmo robots to learn shapes. These electronics are also being utilized to teach the students the basics of coding. There is talk of a potential all-school read for next school year as a part of the Reading Fundamental program. There's nothing to report for extracurriculars. Culturally, they participated in the Spirit Week in conjunction with the high school. There will also be a Bridge Day in May for the current second grade students that will be transitioning to the Intermediate Center next school year. Field days planned for the end of the school year, and they'll be looking for some high school student volunteers to assist. For the Intermediate Center, academically, the students are starting to prepare for the essays. Extracurricularly, the library classes are focusing on the current book fair. Music groups are preparing for their spring concerts. And culturally, the fifth and third graders are participating in their respective media challenges.
Okay, so for the middle school, for academics, they're working on PSSA and Keystone Prep. For extracurricular, the band and chorus will be participating in the amusement and arts at Hershey. For cultural, the middle school student government will be organizing a dance on April 22nd. And for the high school academic, 4 students from AP government attended Senator Judy Schwank's Model Senate in Harrisburg. Extracurricular, Laser Media held their first ever film festival, and it was well attended. Cultural, Laser Ball was held on March 16th and raised $650 to donate to suicide prevention. For the Unified Ambassadors, they held a Special Olympics Reason for a Reason fundraiser and raised over $3,600. And the DBHS JROTC will be collecting donations for homeless veterans from April 11th through May 11th. And the donation drive will be culminating in a ruck march from Gibraltar to Reading.
Thank you both. Any questions for our student board representatives? Thank you. Okay, now I need my glasses.
Thank you, guys.
So, thank you guys. Under finance. I'm looking through here. Is there anything any of the board wants to discuss or get some clarification on from the administration? I think almost everything in here is stuff we've either discussed in committee or renewals. So I don't know if anybody has anything they want to discuss. Okay, hearing none. Do we have any public comment on finance items? Okay, moving on to programs. Any discussion from any of the board on anything under programs? One thing I wanted to point out, when we originally put in our, under item 382, we originally put in our proposal to the state on our flexible instruction days, expired, so we just need to renew it. There's no change. Is there anything anybody else wants to discuss? Any public comment on programs? Under personnel, and some retirements, leaves, appointments. Anything anybody wants to discuss under that? Any public comment on personnel? Okay, presentations by board members. Secretary's correspondence, is there any? Okay.
I have nothing to report.
Okay. Berks County Intermediate Unit, Mr. Gierick?
Berks County Unit met on March 17th. Basically did approve some HR items, policies, and procedures that they reviewed for the BCIU. They recognized the Employee of the Month for March, Mr. Alec Johnson, Customer Service Experience Administrative Coordinator, was recognized for his service. There were surveys distributed for Dr. Hackman, which had to be turned in for her evaluation. And there were some legislative updates. That I could have particulars for. That's it.
Okay, any of the board members have any questions for Mr. Gierick about BCIU? Okay, BCTC, Ms. Thompson.
All right, we had March 23rd.
I think there's a speed limit on that road. Sorry.
We approved the calendar year for 2022, with the start date of August 23rd and their last day is 2nd. We received grants. They're using ESSER grants for the children. The next meeting is April 27th, and they have invited every school board for a tour. If anybody wants to do that. And May 31st is senior recognition.
What date is that? April 27th?
Make the senior recognition?
No, the invitation for the
Oh,
tour.
the tour, I believe they emailed us dates.
Okay. All right, any questions for Ms. Thompson? Legislative report, Mr. Strobel.
It wasn't at the last meeting, and our meeting's tomorrow. It should be a pretty good meeting. I just want to go over the overall focus of the COLA purpose. There are some priorities, redistricting maps, and some other items like that. And there's a special speaker, a resident in political affairs. So anybody that's not doing it tomorrow morning at 7:30, you're welcome to join us.
Excellent. Anybody have any questions for Mr. Strobel? Under other reports, I will just say I received an email from Brianna Lee, who is a student at the high school. She was not able to make it to the meeting today, but she wanted to continue to encourage the school board and the school district to work towards creating a school environment that includes everyone. So I just wanted to say that. So anybody, anything? Okay. Public comment?
I'm sorry, I had a report. I went to the first.
Oh, I apologize. Oh, yeah.
Meeting on March 31st. We just talked about the statement of position, statement of revenues, expenses, and changes, year-to-date budget versus actual, and distribution summary.
Okay. All right. That's a quarterly thing.
Quarterly.
Yeah, right. Okay. All right. Any?
I do want to make a comment, especially after what you just said about
Okay.
Brianna Lee writing that she wanted to include everyone. It is my impression that last week there was a meeting that was only for students of color that took place in our school. So that to me is in direct correlation to the letter she sent to us, without including everyone. And while I would love to speak with her about that tonight, she's not here.
Yeah, she said that she's at the FBLA regionals. So maybe we'll have a chance to talk to her about that when she comes in next
I'd
week.
love to.
Okay. Any public comment?
I do.
Okay.
I guess my question is, does the school have policies and procedures in place that are excluding certain people? Because I do know when we're in this high school, there is like signs for LGBTQ, which I'm assuming that's inclusive of that, of people. And there's, I think, a diverse student body that I do believe is diverse. But if we have policies and procedures that are in place to oppress people, saying, if you're in our classroom, you actually can't be in this classroom, you have to sit in the back of the classroom, or you have to go to another classroom. I mean, I think the parents and folks would like to know that too, because if she's writing a letter saying that we need to be more inclusive, how are we not being inclusive? I guess that's the question that I have. I don't know. Just a thought.
Thank you. Okay. Oh, go ahead.
My name is Gretchen. I'm from Birdsboro. I live on Pearl Street. I grew up in the 80s, and our enemy were communists, Russia. They were our enemy. Today, the kids' enemy are each other.
This narrative is pushed by the mainstream media and social media. We live in a society where there are no consequences in all facets of society. We live in a society with broken homes. The nuclear family is often dead. God is removed from everything. We are divided by color. We are divided by race. And we are divided by vaccination status. And we are divided by faith. Now the girls aren't here tonight, but my heart breaks for these girls who come week after week stating that they hate high school. For me personally, high school was one of my favorite times in life. Yeah, there were cliques, but by the time you got to high school, everyone got along. My question to everyone in this room is what can we do to fix this? What can we collectively do to make a better life for our children? To be great stewards of this cruel, insane world. Our kids deserve better than this. And it is up to us as adults to collectively come together and make this right. I would be willing to meet with anyone and anyone to come up with a solution. This is Holy Week. I pray that everyone takes the sacred time to reflect and pray. Ask God for guidance. Pray for His love. Pray for peace, love, and understanding. Who shall I send? Send me. May God bless you and your families during this holy season of Easter.
Thank you. time, if you have more to discuss on this or any other subject, we will have time at the end of the meeting as well. Because we're going to move on into like some pretty mundane stuff at this point. Enrollment numbers for the month of March. Anybody have any questions, concerns? Any public comment? Moving on to the Curriculum and Instruction Committee meeting. Ms. Albright.
We met last month and talked about the summer academic programming being underway. At the primary center, we'll host the majority of those classes. The S5 will be at the middle school, and 6 through 11 will be at the high school. Ms. Owens isn't here, but I think that's all I have.
Okay. And next meeting is before the voting meeting, I guess, April 25th. Okay, any public comment? Oh, any questions for Ms. Albright before we move on to public comment? Public comment on this curriculum instruction? Extracurricular. Ms. Bell, we did not meet today.
Today's meeting was canceled.
Right, okay. Next meeting scheduled for May 9th. Any public comment on the meeting that didn't happen? Facilities and transportation, that's a long one. We covered a lot of ground.
You said next meeting. I'm not ready. So just let me break that down. We could cover a lot today. Longest meeting in a while. Well, I'll kind of surmise real quick. Library restoration project update. Painting was completed this week. Flooring should be in next week, and there was lighting replacement with LED lights. I did not get an ETA on when it's going to completion, but the project's moving along as expected. Intermediate Center retaining wall repairs. Boyer amended its engineering amended its bid, its proposal, and there's a pre-bid meeting on 4/14 at 3 p.m. for those that would like to attend. Food and service proactive maintenance agreement. Food service proactive maintenance agreement. There was we had Clark handled that for years, and it was about $9,650 annually for the maintenance agreement, and the K&D, another company that comes in and does work for us here. So we do bid it out if there's something found, and they do still put out the bid. K&D comes in pretty good different options, but they came in with a bid of $6,200 per year, and that's with a 3-year option to lock in the price on that. So it's a substantial savings with an opportunity to lock in during a time where pretty much everybody's raising their prices. He feels that Brian felt that they have better communication and better price quotes. So we would like to get that into our next voting meeting to be able to put that through. One of the items. HVAC repairs. Train came in with 3 bad controllers at the high school. Price to replace them, and no controller. They don't work, so it's not something we have a choice on. It's $3,897. We'd like to have that bid on. The high school boiler. We did recently purchase a high school boiler, and there's a reconstruction of that whole area and the thought process of how the mechanical is going to work. So they're going to remove a large tank and take out 6 continuous heat, 12 contiguous hot water type heaters, and they're going to replace them with 4 additional heaters with and heat exchanger for the boiler. So they found that was going to be bad. So that should be able to handle the demand. And one of the questions was that in their contract that the engineering will handle the demand at peak demand. So he's going to have that added, but that would be $107,200. And right now we're in a position where we could have a complete failure of heat with it. So we're recommending that it's put up to the voting meeting next week. In honor of Jeff Scott, high school doors, they continue. The egress doors for the library, the cafeteria, and the gym all need replacing, along with hardware, and 2 office doors for the total of $34,636 was the lowest bid. The other bids were about $10,000 each higher than that. And that was something he would like to have put on as well. Former district primary center. did discuss that, the expense of having it, what we're taking in for income, the potential use of it down the road, and we'd like to at least explore the value of what they are. So we'd like to have 2 appraisals done. They're about $400 to $500 to $5,000 each, and so we'd like to do a not to exclude $10,000, get an idea of the value of that building. Because right now it's costing us money to keep it. And there were some miscellaneous items we went and reviewed with the transportation department and the Klein and Roads that I'm not going to get into details with, but there's negotiations on contracts there.
So just to be clear, all of those items, except for the continuing discussions about the transportation contract, were recommended to be added to the to the voting meeting at the end of the month. You can ask questions about them now if you want to. If you think of something you want to ask, because it is a significant amount of money outlay. You can send an email to Kevin, but Mr. Kabbalah is going to be leaving with us. I won't be here by the time our next meeting happens, so just reach out to Brett or Kevin if you have concerns before the meeting. But you can ask questions then too.
He also mentioned too, just to kind of put it out there, that he did talk to Kathleen. It is in the capital improvements area.
Oh, that's right.
Money's there, so
Thank you for mentioning
there's
that.
definitely a need. Got to have heat.
So I know that was a lot, but does anybody have any concerns about any of those facilities issues? Okay. Next meeting,
May 9th.
May 9th. Any public comment on facilities? Okay, moving on to finance. Moving on to finance. Okay, so our last meeting was March 28th. We had 2 discussions. Keystone is a group that is currently leasing part of the Old Amity Primary Center from us. Their lease is up at the end of this school year, and our business office talked to everybody about their intent to approach them to see if they would be amenable to signing a new lease with the same end date as the other tenants of the building. That conversation, I don't know if that's happened. And then Halter is currently our maintenance and grounds contractor. They lease space from us. They lease a shed at the high school and a shed at the middle school from us. They store maintenance, landscape, and snow removal equipment there. The business office was going to reach out to them to see if they planned to continue their agreements with them as their new site on the Ben Franklin Highway is close to completion. So we didn't know if they still needed that space. Our next meeting is April 25th, and our next budget workshop is set for March 3rd at 6:30. March is not the month. That's the month that just happened. It's May. May 3rd at 6:30 here. Everyone's welcome to attend. We will hopefully have a little bit more nitty-gritty to discuss about we'll have a little bit more clarity on what next year's budget will look like by then. So any questions for me from the board on finance? Any public comment on finance? Policy review, Mr. Scott, there was no meeting today.
There was no meeting, and our
Okay.
next meeting will be on May 9th.
Okay. The first reading, second reading are listed there from last meeting, from the last meeting previous in March. Any comments or questions, concerns for either Mr. Hurley or for Mr. Scott from the board? Any public comment on policy? Moving on to technology, Mr. Strobel.
Thank you to Julie for taking copious notes for me.
I appreciate it.
Unable to attend the meeting.
Yeah.
Infrastructure update, phone system should have a contract to vote on, hopefully this in April, coming up here, this next one. Our next meeting is April 25th. I'll jump past that. End user equipment. Not a big year for replacement. Media lab, music, 45 to 50 computers for about $14,000. But about 4 years ago, we kind of leveled this playing field for technology going forward. We kind of everything's on a lease, and so we've really made a big inroad in terms of our budgets. We don't have the big spikes anymore, and that's something huge happens, but typically we're going to be leveled out, and he's just kind of updating on us what he needs, or what needs to be purchased out of what's already budgeted. Project update, cybersecurity. Another local school district was hacked, just for a point of reference, point that out there. Multi-factor authentication, which not everybody likes, but it's coming. And like freight training everywhere. We're going to have it here. I think there's going to be safeguard rules coming up here soon that pretty much everybody's going to have to deal with. But it's intended to be done by the end of the school year, which will be probably about, I'm going to suggest, 6 months ahead of schedule before they actually have to be. Security campaign, pretend phishing emails were going out to the staff, and so they're used to not trap, but to help train, and so it was a little eye-opening for everybody, and so it created increased awareness on those, and that went well. Working with tech staff to create new training content for cybersecurity, an integrated learning coach team still going around with Savannah G Suite training, and computer class is not going to be an event, it will be an ongoing tool available to students. And our next meeting is April 25th.
Any questions for Mr. Strobel from the board? Any public comment? Old business, meeting minutes from March 28th. Any questions from the board? Any public comment? And new business, I got none. But we do have some space here for presentations by the public on issues. Okay.
I didn't push the button yet.
Hi, everybody.
I know what to do. It's not my first rodeo.
Hello, everyone. It's good to see your lovely faces as always. Hold on that, hold on. Hold on.
It's all good.
I wanted to go up earlier with the first part, but what I want to talk about is with the girls coming every week. I didn't want to fight with the girls. I get, he said, she said. That's kind of how it seemed almost like. We go up first or last, and then they wait till last. It's almost like this game almost. And I don't want to play games that are discredit anything that they say. I guess where it started was, or we started, this is my perspective, okay? Where it started was we were coming here and saying about critical race theory being taught in school, and Rob Flowers is teaching critical race theory, and this, that, and the other, and some of his equity meetings had that seemed like that's what was happening. So we started questioning it. And then we bring it to the board, we're announcing it, this is what's being said, blah, blah, blah. All of a sudden, the next week, next time we have a board meeting, these girls come in. And they're giving out their speech, and they were, hey, my heart led to them where I came up and I told them my daughter was happening. But then they come every week and they're saying the same thing over and over and over again. They're allowed to do that. But they're talking to the board, and you guys can't do anything. I mean, you're limited in what you can do. However, I think more Dr. Cooper can talk to the principals and things like that. So I'm sitting here and I want to say something. I don't want to fight with these girls because they're going to get triggered. You know what I mean? But it all came about once we started saying about critical race and Rob Flowers. Also, these girls come, he's talking, he's grooving in the hallway, and all this stuff what I see. This is my perspective. They start talking about racism. I'm sure everybody has a different definition of racism. I mean, what is racist? You know what I mean? What is racist? Everybody probably have their own definition of what that is. To me, racist is when you're excluding a group of people for the color of their skin. Okay, excluding. Not calling them names. Names are names. That's what I heard. Names. This called me a name. This one called me that. Is it? Yeah, it's terrible. Should students be punished? Absolutely. From what I understand, they were. But these girls want blood. Blood. It's what it seems like. They want, I don't know what they wanted. They're saying how Rob Flowers' equity needs helps, but it's not enough. You know what I mean? I don't know where, it's like, I get it. But, so my wife came up, when another pastor came up and started talking about love last week, the last time we were here, which was great, kind of spaced everything out. The next equity and inclusion meeting, which I'm sure some of you guys were on, it was decent. It actually was very good, but he talked about love, almost like love was put in because that's what we literally talked about on Monday. It was almost scripted, like it was not what it pans out to be. So I guess, you know, my question is that what are the principals doing for this? You know, because they want, I don't know, again, they want, like they said, what? It's like, and I'm sorry, I'm going past my time. I wanted to say something, but I just couldn't have it. And I felt bad when they come up here and they say that they're threatened. You know what I mean? They said they were threatened and they're afraid to come to school. That to me is terrible. And nobody wants to be threatened when they come to school. School should be a safe place for students to come. But if someone threatened or felt threatened to my child, I would be here as a parent. Where are the parents? So when these girls are asking, they're threatened, where are the parents? Again, you don't know people's heart lives, but there should be a guardian here vouching for them, and not these girls coming up and putting it on their own. Now there's whatever, 5, 6, 7, whatever. At least 1, 2, 3 parents, it's 7 girls, no parents, you know. Again, they're saying the same thing. I apologize for taking too much time. I just, you know, and I know you guys are limited. If anybody wants to talk to me more about it, I'll be happy to talk more about what's going on. I know you guys are going to know what you guys can do. And I know it's like, you need to fix the problem. But the principal should be in here too. So they need to come in here and address what's going on, or let people know, let parents know what's going on in school. This is what's happening, this is how it's being addressed. It seems like these kids were being reprimanded, but again, I'm sorry, I apologize for taking this up.
Thank you, sir.
I was on the equity roundtable call with Bob Flowers. It was a lot better. It almost looked like it was a complete 180 shift in how it is that we approached the equity roundtable this time around. It was pretty pleasant. Something I do want to make sure that we do keep in the forefront is that we can change these meetings, we can change equity roundtables. It doesn't change the fact that through the Department of Education in the state of Pennsylvania, there's still that Karl Marx critical theory concept. Identify your oppression, and then once you can identify your oppression, you can identify who's oppressing you. Therefore, you can remove yourself from the oppressor, and then that translates into activism. And so we're kind of seeing that unfold almost in the physical, which is obviously pretty weird now that I mention it. But I want to make sure that as a school, when we do get our funding for COVID, the ESSER plan, that we are pushing curriculum that's going to support the children, educate them on exactly what real history is, and teach them what is and is not racism, discrimination, and the impact that has. Now, I went to school in New York. My principal, her name was Carol Conklin. I'm going to throw her name on the floor right now. I give you a phone number. There were 70% of us who were immigrants. We came from immigrant parents, and we were the bottom of the totem pole. And then by the time I was a senior, we were the top 3 in the state. She ended up becoming a consultant in the state of New York because she was able to take a very diverse situation and make it into something extremely positive. I highly recommend taking on maybe someone like Carol Conklin to take a look at what exactly we're dealing with and see what her experience has to offer. Another thing is when we are reprimanding children for racism, how is racism being quantified? How is it being tracked? Is it written down? How many cases are these kids experiencing in a day? Are we actually measuring it? Because in order for us to solve a problem, it has to become measurable. And then once it's measurable, we can then create an action plan to then minimize what it is that we're seeing. I'm in finance, so I think numbers, in terms of numbers. So how are we tracking that? I know the case that we have going on with the lawsuit, a lot of that was because we weren't keeping proper documentation. So when these kids come in and they say this, I know their parents are not here, but I'm going to stand in the gap as a parent saying, why are they saying that, and is this quantifiable? Secondly, if there are kids who are participating in actual racial slurs and discrimination, we live so close to the city of Philadelphia. A good friend of mine is the founder and CEO of Philadelphia Youth Network. Her name is Miss Shakima Townsend. I can get her on the phone and have kids participate in community service. I'm pretty sure she'll have things for them to do, and she can really show them what it is to be a part of a community like that. I mean, I don't know what it is it needs to take to kind of like, I don't know, the kids want some disciplinary action, but maybe it's community service. I don't know. It's just a recommendation that I'm offering to the table.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? There's someone I haven't seen at your meetings in a while.
Oh, you moved.
Shane Cockle, 830 Bangertown Road. My question is, with the graduation caps and gowns, whose decision was it to take away the decade tradition of girls dressing in their white gowns?
It was the students.
I was told it was not the students.
Well, might not be like every student that wanted to do it, but
My daughter's in student council, and she did not know anything about this.
yeah, I knew about it 2 years ago that it was coming.
But why can't girls be proud to be girls and wear their whites? Why, if someone wants to identify as a girl, wear white? Why does everyone have to submit to one color of blue, which is the boys' color? I mean, people should be proud if they're what race they are, if they're tall, if they're short, if they're male or female, or how they identify. To just take away a decade tradition of watching those students walk down over the hill, blue and white, I think is a shame. I think the school district really fell short, and whoever made that decision, or whoever brought it up, they should be questioned, because what is next? Does everyone have to wear the same uniform to come to school? Does everyone have to wear khakis and a blue shirt, boys and girls? I mean, I don't understand why the decision was made, especially without questioning the student body. I mean, I don't know who would come in and complain about, hey, this isn't right because I have to wear white. I mean, I really think I don't know if it's too late to reverse it, but it should be actually revisited. And if girls want to be girls, let them be girls and wear their whites. I don't understand why everyone has to be the same. And that's really.
I actually have a follow-up to that. Is it true that you said that you knew of this a couple of years ago? Is it true that they got their pictures taken in one color and they're going to graduate in another color? That's what I heard.
That's why my understanding was that is why we didn't switch last year.
But apparently it happened this year as well.
Oh, did it really?
Yeah. So they have a picture of their kid in one color, but they're going to be in another color.
Why is that an important factor in education? I mean, it's the last day these kids are going to see each other. Why can't they just identify the way they want to identify? If someone wants to wear white, and they should be wearing blue, let them wear white. If someone wear white and they want to wear blue,
I understand what you're saying.
let them wear blue. But just to say, you know what, this is nonsense, everyone has to be the same, and we're taking away the tradition of decade long of the blue and whites coming down over the hill and lining up on one side and lining up on the other. It's beautiful. Two of my girls graduated here. So I have two girls that graduated in white, and my last one will be graduating graduating in blue. I think the school district fell short on that one, because there's really not a reason other than, let's just pull this out of thin air to make a decision. Unless someone knows the correct decision and who is the one who brought it to the board to get changed.
We didn't change it.
No, we don't have any input into anything with
I have a
graduation.
daughter graduating
Nobody
this
asked
year.
my
I didn't know that until just now, so I had no idea.
I mean, like, who made this decision?
Why?
Not us. Not us.
We will,
Well, somebody has to know.
we will answer you, because I know,
I mean, this
I knew
process
that it was,
happened
that
before
it was
this.
I knew that it was coming, honestly, I don't care. So, I mean, you know, so it's nothing that would have, I wouldn't have had any response one way or another, it was my kid.
As small as it is, I
No,
think-
I'm just saying that, you know, I wouldn't have thought that it was anything to be discussed, but however, it is not a board decision. Everything about graduation, other than footing the bill, is not us.
So girls can
And
still wear white.
I don't know, so we're gonna get back to you.
Brett should know.
But the principal isn't here today.
He is, but
the
he
pr-
shouldn't be answering.
Yeah, so,
Oh.
I mean,
okay,
Can't actually answer that.
okay.
Thank
We will
you.
get back to you though. Anyone else? Can I get a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
And a second.
Who was the first? Is all right?
Enjoy your spring vacation, everybody. Even if you don't go anywhere. And we're adjourned.